Hello, welcome to the first event in the Future of Urban Farming series. This series is part of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge, organized by Wageningen University and Research in collaboration with Rabobank, Country Garden Agriculture, and 28 other partners. In this competition, we challenge students to develop an urban greenhouse concept for a metropolitan area in world. In the second edition, it is Dongguan in China. At the moment, 20 teams are competing for the place at the finals. On 22nd of June, we announce the finalists, an event to look forward to. If you want to know more about the Urban Greenhouse Challenge and about this event, visit our website at urbangreenhousechallenge.nl. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Wouter Verkerke of Wageningen University and Research. Hi, Wouter.
Hi.
Hi. Wouter is going to talk about the greenhouse pharmacy program, research program run by Wageningen University and Research since 2015, in quest for new crops and new clients for Dutch horticulture system. Before I give the floor to Wouter, I would like to remind you that after his presentation, we'll start a Q&A session. So if you have questions, you can put them in chat. And please remember to mark them as questions so that we can find them easily. And in case you would like to go live on stage to ask your question, it's also possible. Just let us know. So now I give the floor to Dr. Verkerke. Enjoy the presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Marta. And I'm honored to give us a presentation on the greenhouse pharmacy. First, to introduce myself, I'm a city boy from Amsterdam. I was trained in evolutionary biology and did some field work in Gabon and Panama, and then was offered a postdoc at Smithsonian, but I chose to work at Wageningen. And now I'm the lead of the greenhouse pharmacy program. It deals with new business models in horticulture with new crops. And just to know who we are, who I'm talking to, just for fun, I want to start a small poll with you. And I hope the poll can be inside. And I would like to ask you, do you recognize the plant on the second photo from the left? That plant, the Latin name of it. Is that a flowering phalaenopsis in a greenhouse, a flowering dendrobium in a greenhouse, or a flowering vanilla in a greenhouse? May I have your votes, please? Okay, well, the vast majority choose right. Yes, it is a flowering vanilla in a greenhouse. It's an orchid plant. Oh, there are a few phalaenopsis people still there. Yes, well, it's a vanilla. I'll come back to that later. Can I have the second poll, please? The correct Latin name of the outer right plant, and is that a Mimbulus mimbletonia? Is that a Scutellaria galericulata? Or is it a Scutellaria bicalensis? Yeah, that's interesting. It's nice to see the polls. Well, it's not a Scutellaria galericulata that has fewer flowers. It's not a Mimbulus mimbletonia. That is the favorite plant of Neville Longbottom in Harry Potter, and I have never seen that plant in real life. So it's a Scutellaria bicalensis. It's a traditional Chinese medicine, very interesting plant. And in my opinion, it is a waste to destroy nature to harvest these plants. These could be very well grown in sustainable production systems like greenhouses. So thank you very much for this poll, and I will go back to the slides and I will present the greenhouse pharmacy for you. The greenhouse pharmacy is a research program, and it is a case that could be interesting for your urban challenge. To understand this case, you need to know something about the Netherlands and greenhouse horticulture. The Netherlands is a small country characterized by early urbanization, by big neighbors, and most of our country is below the sea level. So to be able to survive in this environment, we need innovation and cooperation. These are not good or bad things. These are just characteristics of Dutch society. We need innovation and cooperation to build dikes and to survive in the place where we live. Furthermore, horticulture is specialized agriculture. It produces special products in specialized farms around metropolitan areas. And in Wageningen, and many more people think that this model that we developed with greenhouses around metropolitan areas could be an inspiration for green belts. And if you want to know more about green belts, I would like to refer to the websites of Sustainable Urban Delta, hosted by Priva, and the director of Priva, Meini Prins. She is the big advocate of these green belts. Okay. Now, transitions. You have heard about transitions, at least the students of the challenge have heard about transitions in the lecture of Joris Lohman. And I would like to build further on his lecture and give you 5 landmarks which can help as to order the thoughts here. I slightly disagree with Joris. Transition is the rule, and steady states are sometimes a bit mythical situations that people refer to. As a trained evolutionary biologist, I know that transitions are the rule in history. But the first landmark, 1620, and the scientists are still debating which date it exactly should be, but at least 1620 is the first year that we estimate that more people in Holland lived in cities than in land. So this was the start of a need for specialized agriculture because the people in the cities could not feed each other. Holland is characterized by early urbanization. The next landmark is 1845. It's a totally different sort of landmark. 1845 is the start of the Irish famine. So a big hunger disaster developed in Ireland, and many people died. It was a gigantic tragedy. Many people emigrated to the United States, and farmers just could not find answers to potato blight disease, and their sole food was erased by this terrible disease. And then the Dutch government, as a response to this disaster, did a very remarkable thing. They decided, we will not let this happen to our people, and they started a cooperation between science and farmers. And this is a very remarkable step because, and they did it in the good old Dutch tradition of collaboration. We are in the same boat. And before that, farmers just did what their parents did. And from that moment on, 1845, there was a combination formed between um, craftsmanship of farmers and scientific discovery by scientists. Now, the third landmark, which is important to remember, is 1950. That is just after the Second World War, when we encountered in Dutch horticulture the situation that many products were made, but there were new producers coming on the market who could produce more or less the same products, but for a much lower price. And this landmark has more or less evoked a lot of technological developments in the greenhouse industry. I'll come back to that later. And the 1970s is the age of awakening, I should say, of people in cities asking questions: do we want the food from industry? And that movement is still going on, and Joris referred to it already. And unlike things that are sometimes framed in the media, I think horticulture is very well responding to these new social demands. Now, the last landmark is 2014, when a report by McKinsey was published on Dutch horticulture. And the message of that report was very simple. There is increasing competition for Dutch horticulture from low labor cost countries. And Dutch horticulture should develop more added value creation to ensure the income of the growers. Note that in the Netherlands, there is no food crisis. There are plenty of vegetables, but the basis of it is endangered because growers see competition from other countries, and they are inspired by the McKinsey report to start new ways of value creation. Anyway, Wageningen also read this report, and we studied the transitions, and we developed these landmarks that I discussed with you. And our answer was to start a new research program on value creation in horticulture, in protected cultivation systems. So our program is the answer to changing social demands. Now, to go to the last transitions that I mentioned, this is a picture of the Westland area in the Netherlands. You see a lot of greenhouses, and in fact, the amount of greenhouses before the Second World War and after the Second World War, let's say now, has not dramatically changed. But what was grown in it has dramatically changed. In, let's say, 1934, this is just an arbitrary landmark, the main crop of the Westlands, let's say 80% or 70%, something like that, was table grapes. And these grapes were wonderful, and the growers were very skilled, and there was a lot of knowledge, and the products were fantastic, and the export of this product to countries like England was all very smoothly, and these were ideal products actually. But after the World War, the European Union was formed, and it appeared that other countries could produce more or less the same quality, not better table grapes, but a lot cheaper table grapes because they had a lower labor cost. And this evoked a plethora of innovations, and the crop had to be abandoned, but the cooperation of the growers and the universities and so on stayed where it was, and they developed new crops, like this tomato, which is and it developed rock wool cultivation. It evolved new varieties of tomato, new fertigation, and higher greenhouses, better greenhouses, more energy-saving greenhouses. A lot of things happened because of these changing social demands. And so what you see is that when a disaster happens or social demands are changing, then the cooperation stays the same, only the crops differ. And that is an inspiration for growers and for the industry, and also for Wageningen, that we can find answers to changing societal demands. And in my opinion, we are, at least 2014, we were in a similar situation. We had to find new answers for greenhouse industry, and the knowledge basis was very good. They didn't have to abandon this basis, but they had to build new chains with new partners, and probably new crops, and probably also new production systems. But they just had to find a way, and we also identified Wageningen as a potential bridge between those new partners and the greenhouse industry, because these new partners, they do not know all the individual players of this port or cluster that we have in the Westland area, but they do know Wageningen University. So there was a role for us not only to develop new technology and new insights in crop physiology and new crops, growing recipes, but also developing new chains, for instance, with pharmaceutical industry. And we saw different opportunities. We saw a worldwide increase in demand of natural ingredients, for instance, food ingredients, cosmeceuticals, and plant-based medicine. And we saw a demand for locally cultivated tropical crops, which should have the same quality and flavor as the tropical fruits from let's say, Middle America or Africa, but should have less air miles and a lower CO2 footprint, and they should not have pesticides. And local production is becoming more and more important, as we realize today. Now, what do I mean with food ingredients? Vanilla is a food ingredient, and modern consumers are not satisfied anymore with synthetic alternatives of Mother Nature. They want the real thing. They want the real part of Mother Nature on their plate, in their food. And we see these as opportunities for Dutch horticulture. It doesn't mean that all the growers have to change to vanilla growing. Let's hope they will not do that. But I see it as a pearl in the crown to develop more crops for new chains. So our greenhouse pharmacy program has projects on food ingredients like vanilla, like wasabi, like saffron. It has projects on cosmeceuticals, and cosmeceuticals are, for instance, skin cream with ingredients that nourish the skin, and they're not just for looking better, also for nourishing yourself. And the new word for that is cosmeceuticals. Plant-based medicine are also very interesting new developments. At the moment, we hope to work on traditional Chinese medicines. We are not trying to convince people that these medicines are good medicines or but we just want to develop sustainable cultivation of these wonderful products. And the tropical fruits, fruits like papaya or passiflora are very interesting to grow in greenhouses. Local for local, with no air miles, but excellent quality. And Dutch horticulture can do that. And I see all these new crops as pearls in the crown of a complete horticultural sector. Now, some details about this vanilla flower, which most of you, I'm very happy, could identify. This vanilla flower in the vanilla orchid is originating from Mexico, and it's there in 20 meters above the forest floor. It grows there, and it's pollinated by a bee, and this bee does a very poor job. Only perhaps 1% or so of the flowers is really pollinated, and the fruits develop. It's good enough for speciation. It's good enough for surviving, but it's not good enough for agriculture. Now, early in history, people found that the fruits of this orchid, when they went to ferment, let's call it fermented, they produced this wonderful flavor vanilla. And I have never met a single person who does not like vanilla. And once you have tasted the real thing you do not want, you do not accept synthetic alternatives. And the vanilla market is very difficult. There's a lot of vanilla is produced in all kinds of countries, in Madagascar, La Réunion, but it's just not enough to satisfy the world needs. And also there are big fluctuations in the price of vanilla. So we think there are options to grow this plant in a greenhouse. And a greenhouse system could offer a market stabilization also for the outdoor producing vanilla farmers. And this is how such a system looks. It looks very like the crop type of a cucumber, but it's a vanilla plant. So it's a high wire system with high producing plants and with excellent quality. So this is what we call Mother Nature from a high-tech greenhouse. But the products from it are really of Bourbon quality, and that is what counts. So this is a way of sustainably growing a food ingredient with in which growers can guarantee supply. And we build now new chains with all kinds of people who, for instance, this is a startup who wants to use this real vanilla in skin creams. And yeah, some more people testing this vanilla. It's very difficult to take a picture of a wonderful smell, but this is my best shot up to now. Another ingredient which is very interesting from research point of view at least is pepper, so Piper nigrum. And so black pepper starts as a green plant, and later on these green parts become red, and only dried they become black. And the fresh product of black pepper has many aromatic compounds, and it's a very interesting product for retail. And this is one of the innovations that we are still working on to get it really upscaled and used by a grower. And with our flavor team, we could test the difference of different varieties. And this is one variety which is very aromatic and very high producing. So it's a very interesting new crop for a greenhouse. But it's still in the research phase, this black pepper, actually. Now, the impact of this program and what we do in the program is we develop new growing recipes of interesting plants in a greenhouse, and we do that for new partners. So not for retail, but for pharmaceutical industry, at least for the ingredients. And we develop growing recipes for tropical fruits for retail that want to have a constant supply of these crops. Now, the impact of our program is new business for growers. And a thing that is not so mentioned in the media, but it also gives them hope. It gives them the feeling of, yes, we can do this. Our predecessors have developed, they did all these transitions and they participated in all these developments, and we can do that too. We also develop, so bringing new perspective for growers is very important. Another thing we do is we develop new ways of adding value through total crop use. So, for instance, we develop a cultivation system which allows us to harvest fruits for retail, the leaves for cosmeceuticals, and the remaining flowers for a product like massage oil. This seems very simple, but it's not so easy to get into this situation. You need to find the right genotype to do this, and maybe you should set up breeding, but we haven't done that. But you need to choose the right genotype in the right condition, in the right cultivation process, and have the right partners to allow this total crop use. But it is wonderful to realize. So what we also do is we connect growers with new partners like pharmaceutical industry. And not all pharmaceutical industry is interested in building up relations with horticulture, but the world is big and there are a lot of opportunities there. What we also do in this program is we redesign production systems and the supply chain, as I mentioned already. And we develop new concepts like ingredient farms. And ingredient farms are doing new things. They're not just producing flowers or fruits. They make new products for new customers. Now, what is the impact of this whole story for your challenge? And I refer now to the students here. I would say a few lessons for you, a few hints for you. First, value creation may be possible in many new ways. And for the Dutch situation, we looked at new crops and new customers, new chains, but you could also develop new services. And the second thing I would give to you is please analyze the local situation and the history in Dongguan. And I think the lecture of Tiffany was very inspiring. And the Netherlands is just one case, but you could do the same effort in trying to understand the local situation and history. Now, the third thing I would like to have you think it over is the difference between cultivation systems and products. And you have to sell your ideas on sustainability and of your system, your cultivation system, to your stakeholders. But the success will be defined by how good you will sell your products to your customers. Now, this is not the black and white difference because those two influence each other. But think about value creation in which kind of products are my customers interested in. And Tiffany gave a very good insight in the changing situations in China at the moment. Now, the final thing looks a bit like a warning, but okay, you can frame it as you want to, but plants grow easily. It's not difficult to grow a plant. But to organize a good supply chain and organize skilled labor force can be very difficult. And producing a good crop and delivering quality produce has been always a combination of craftsmanship by growers and the interaction with science. And I hope you can use these two, let's call it, skills from growers and science from scientists in your winning design of this beautiful challenge. And I want to say to everybody, thank you very much for your attention and good luck with your challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Wouter. Very interesting presentation. We already have quite some questions in the chat. I hope you can see them.
Yes.
But I would like to ask something else before we go to Q&A. Actually, out of the crops that you have been researching, which of the new crops have been so far the most successful in alternative crop that has been successful in the Dutch horticulture?
Papaya.
Papaya.
There are huge problems with papaya in Dutch retail and in German retail, and they came to us. Well, not directly to me, but they came to the Großhandlung, the wholesalers, and they told them, "Come on, you are so good with your peppers and tomatoes and your sweet peppers, your tomatoes, and your cucumbers. And we have never a problem with them. One telephone a year and it's done. But with these tropical fruits, we have every day there is a disaster going on. Can you help us with reliable supply?" And what are these disasters? The fruits are too small, they are too big, they're loaded with pesticides, they're not there. So they had to hire all kinds of people to get this done. And so they talked with their wholesalers, and these wholesalers talked to their growers, and I knew the growers, and I made them and brought them into contact with people who developed new cultivation systems for indoor growing. And it's my belief that such indoor growing systems can be put up everywhere in the world for local cultivation, local for local cultivation, not to take over the production, but to make the whole flow more smoothly. And that is the good news. It's a win for everybody because then the retail can have better prices for such products. So I believe in progress here, and that is a long answer, Marta. I'm sorry.
Thank you. We have a question from Krishna Kumar. He's asking, is any work being done on large-scale stevia production? I have broadcasted this question to the
stevia. Yeah. Well, we try to do some work on stevia, and we can very well grow it in greenhouses. We developed a way how to get the level of steviosidus high, and also to do something about the, let's call it, off flavor of stevia. but we have not found a commercial partner who would like to work with us to bring it to the market. So any work has been done, yes, but not on a large scale. And I think there are many more opportunities especially through cultivation, to avoid the awful off flavor that stevia sometimes can have. And on the other hand, there are also some new developments from Unilever that I have seen to produce artificial steviosides, also without the bad flavor. So there might be different options there. But the work that we did on stevia has not been used in upscaling up to now. It is one of the things we tried. And I wish you good luck in setting this up. Yes, interesting.
Yes. Now we have a question from Alice. She's asking, why are pepper and vanilla interesting for research? Is it because it's new? Is it because it's a new cultivation system or business?
Well, pepper was a question from Dutch industry, and they said 70% of the pepper we import from traditional producing countries is so full of pesticides that we cannot use it in our sauces we make for Conimex. Well, Conimex is a Dutch brand of sauces. And in the old days, nobody cared about pesticides, but modern consumers don't want pesticides on their plate. And so do I, and so should you. So Wageningen, could you find a solution? And well, of course, the first thing is to develop biological control in the current producing countries. But on the other hand, you could also try to grow pesticide-free pepper in greenhouses, and we did, and we can, and we are still waiting to develop this further. But the questions came from industry. So why are they interesting for research? Because industry complained about the quality of the present quality, and for vanilla, there are huge demands of vanilla, and there are huge supplies of vanilla, but there is not enough vanilla in the world, and we urgently need a sustainable world market price for vanilla, and this would be good news for all the farmers all over the world if there would be small pockets of high-tech production in greenhouses, which would lead, in my opinion, to stable prices of this wonderful product. So why they're interesting for research? Because industry asked us.
Very clear. Then we have a question from Alejandro. He's from one of the teams participating in the challenge.
Great.
They are planning to grow 3 medicinal herbs.
Yeah.
And they are trying to find out what are the annual yields per square meter. And if you think that those plants it means
I see it. Yeah. Yes. Well, I do not know the answer, but please, Alejandro, write me a mail, and I can ask my Chinese partners in our project whether they could help you.
Okay. And do you think the plants are suitable for the greenhouse production, or that's something?
Oh, plants love greenhouses. It's just you have to be sure, and so growing the plants is not the difficult thing. You have to be sure that you have people who will buy your product, and there are some hiccups there, but I'm happy to share them with Alejandro, but that was the take-home message I wanted to present to you, Alejandro. It's growing plants is easy, but you have to find people who will buy your products. And if you can grow them pesticide-free, I think it's a wonderful option. And then you have a lot to offer, maybe to new clients, maybe not to the traditional buyers of these plants, but there could be the solution. Good luck.
Okay, great. Then we have a question from Jan Jacob. I'm going to broadcast it as well. Does black pepper behave like a known crop that is already being grown in greenhouses?
Yeah. It's very much like a sweet pepper cultivation, and we can have a high wire type of growing, and you just have to. Well, we found out how to work with humidity and temperature, and how to apply biological control. It's not a difficult crop, but if you can grow a sweet pepper in a high wire system, you can cultivate a black pepper. But we did not succeed yet in setting up a business with it. We worked together with a wholesaler, and they presented these wonderful green, fresh black pepper. We're not talking about dried black pepper, but the fresh black pepper, which is green trusses. And we presented these samples to all kinds of small vegetable shops and local chefs. And they were all crazy about the project, about the product. But we did not manage yet to set up a real upscaling of this wonderful part of Mother Nature. But yes, it behaves like a sweet pepper in a high wire greenhouse. Thank you, Jan Jacob.
Okay, great. Then we have another question from Krishna Kumar. Let me broadcast it as well. And he's specifically asking about Coleus forskolli, which is used to treat hypertension in the eye as well as natural.
Yeah. Interesting question. Well, I'm not saying that greenhouses are the solution for every plant. At the moment, my job is finding new business for the greenhouse industry, and I'm looking for certain plants. But you could also look at certain plants and finding the best way to cultivate them. That's another direction. And I do not know for Coleus, but we could. If you have research questions, and well, I work in a contract research organization, but we could advise you perhaps here. And the question is related to mass production. I'm not sure about this, but at least you could find out what the best way to produce this plant is. So greenhouses could play a part in the R&D phase. Coleus, very interesting plant. Good luck with it.
Okay. Then we have a question from Felix, who is asking,
Felix,
does it make sense to grow those plants in an urban farming setting, as many of those plants don't require to be fresh when they are being sold?
Very good question. Well, my program deals with developing, let's say, a new hope. Well, this looks about Star Wars, but a new hope for Dutch horticulture industry. And I'm very happy that they do not rely solely on me. They can do all kinds of other things also. But I think that you should not especially make a combination of urban farming with ingredients. The message that I want you to take home is that by analyzing history and analyzing transition, we found new ways for operating in greenhouses. And whether it's horizontal or vertical, I don't care at all. Actually, there are beautiful new opportunities for urban farming. So my message was more study other transitions and study other solutions when you want to build up urban farming. And yeah, that is in fact the answer.
Okay, nice. There is a person, Luca, namely, who liked your presentation and now is asking, are there opportunities for a master thesis in your group?
Oh yes, yes. Not. Of course, there are some difficulties with the troubles for traveling and so on. In principle, yes. Send me a mail. We can talk about it.
Okay. And Saduarda asked two questions. I broadcast one of them. Do these plants can be included in permaculture systems?
Oh yes. Yeah. Well, I'm not exactly sure what you mean with permaculture. I Well, I look at sustainability. It has many forms of appearances. So, as a scientist, I do not like to attach labels. I do organic pesticides. No, well, as a scientist, I do not like labels too much. For instance, biological or regenerative or organic. What matters to me is how much CO2 is used, how much water is used, how many pesticides are used, and so I think this can be a wonderful marriage between permaculture and new crops. And but the point is, and of course, when you can really explain to your customers that you're really sustainability and they believe your story, they will buy your story, then you have a good start for selling your products. Yeah, there's some more. Well, the question is now out of my window, but I'm happy to answer more questions on the sustainability thing.
Yes,
and good luck.
I think related to that, so hard. I was also asking if organic pesticides and soil management are the options against the pesticides. That's this question.
Yeah, organic pesticides. Well, there are only pesticides for me, but what I mean with biological control, so animals eating other animals, can reduce the amount of pesticides used. And soil management is, of course, every farmer needs to have soil management, and so these are the tools we can use. And I say, greenhouses, yes; pesticides, no, and we can do much better. Pesticides is more or less for people who do not know how to grow a plant, and so. I think the amount of pesticides can be reduced greatly. Students of mine have now calculated that by applying all the knowledge that is available today in the world, all available on the cultivation of cotton, then the amount of pesticides could be reduced from 100% to only 5%, just by applying everything that is known already. And if you know that 10% of all pesticides in the world is used for t-shirts and jeans, this is a very sad story, actually. So good luck with the organic culture. Yeah.
Okay, great. Then we have one more question from Olivia. She's asking, well, she's reflecting on the fact that although the cultivation of those crops is inspiring, the production seems quite small. And actually, how does it contribute to food supply systems in urban areas?
Yeah. A very good question. and it was also raised by the presentation by Tiffany. For food supply, I believe in those green belts, and these green belts can be filled with greenhouses and can be filled with open air cultivation. And so this is more about what is the role of urban greenhouse in food supply. That's how I read the question. Tiffany has convinced me that the situation in Dongguan is much different from the Dutch system, and that greenhouses and technological approach of producing food could be a great opportunity, especially in the market situation that she pictured. So, well, that has been a very vague answer to a clear question, I think. The idea is inspiring the overall production area seems quite small. Yeah. I think for supplying foods in the city, you need more than urban farming. You need green belts. And these green belts can be high tech or low tech or middle tech. Yeah, I hope that's an answer to your question, Olivia. But I'm a city boy from Amsterdam, and we say some questions can be so good that every answer is useless. So keep on asking.
We'll now try to invite one of the Krishna Kumar, because he wanted to go on stage to ask a question. Let's see if it works.
Nice.
Yeah, I invited him. Krishna Kumar, can you see us? Can you hear us? I'm not sure if it works. Otherwise, we'll move to another question. Okay, well.
Yes, papaya.
This is a question from Felix. Oh, I think Krishna Kumar has now joined the room, so probably I can see him now. Let's turn your audio on.
Hello.
Hi, Krishna.
Yeah. Hi, Professor and Martha. Thank you for letting us attend this webinar. It was a very wonderful presentation. I am a scientist working in Kuwait.
Okay, switch on your camera, please.
Okay. Okay. I am from. I work as a scientist for the Desert Agriculture and Ecosystems Program in Kuwait.
Okay.
And we work on greenhouses and plant factory systems. Your presentation was very interesting, and Professor Leo Marcellus is a very good collaborator and friend of ours.
Yes,
from Wageningen. I was listening to the answer that you talked about papaya. Okay, there is a demand for papaya, I understand, but growing a tree inside a greenhouse, would it not be very difficult? I understand there are shorter dwarf varieties of papaya, but how feasible is it to have trees being grown, particularly fruit trees being grown inside the greenhouse? And when we talk about the feasibility, I also want to know how much economically rewarding they are when you grow them inside the greenhouse.
Well, thank you. It's a very good question. I remember papaya when I lived for a half year in Gabon, in Makuku, in the tropical rainforest, and there was a very dull diet we had there. It was only rice and cassave and manioc. And I was very happy to have a papaya tree at our compound. and we climbed it every evening to harvest new fruits, and we had to stand on each on our shoulders and to with a machete and get the papaya. So when I first heard the papaya, I said that's rubbish. We cannot do that in a greenhouse. But we managed to control the growth, and we made a new type of plants, and they grow enormously fast. But they, together with the knowledge of growers who can read the how a plant develops, we managed to get small trees which produce high quality fruits. And if you compare with apples, if you go to a modern apple orchard, you will see only very small shrubs and not the high stems, which are so characteristic, which were very characteristic in the south of Netherlands. So in a greenhouse, you can develop new types of growing, and we have seen it. Well, I have not seen it myself, but with avocado, I have seen small avocado plants in very low Japanese greenhouses, which produce a very high quality. So going into a greenhouse means a new area, a new arena actually for plant for crop physiology. And you mentioned Leo, and Leo was I worked with him for a long time on the vitamin content of tomato, and there also we saw with the changing the cultivation system can do a lot with these with plants. So I think it's an option to study plants which now appear like giant trees. They can become smaller. Now, for instance, if we are looking at a plant like a myristica, and so for the nutmeg, okay, there I pass. Now I give in. That is not possible. But there are a lot of these crops can be made into like sort of dwarf function, and I would be happy to cooperate with you to get local production in your area. In fact, Wageningen is doing that in neighboring countries of you, but only for the common vegetables. But there is a lot possible in greenhouses. Sorry for the long answer, but yes, it's possible to make trees smaller.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Professor. Just a quick, sorry, I know I'm taking much of your time.
No,
but,
I'm really sorry, but we
Please.
have to close the room now. So I wanted to still go for the last question of Felix, which is very
okay, thank you very
specific.
much.
And if you
welcome.
would like to connect with Dr. Verkerke, maybe you can exchange the email addresses. You're welcome.
Exactly. I have his email address. I will contact you, Professor. Thank you very much.
Please.
Thank you,
Thank you
Martha.
very
I
much,
appreciate it.
Krishna Kumar.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye. So the last question is quite technical, I guess. It's from Felix Akens. I'm broadcasting it now.
Yep.
Do you already do work in biochemical metabolite pathway modeling to understand the responses better than to increase and manipulate secondary metabolites in crops?
Yeah. Well, we understand the vitamin C pathway very well, also because of the work of my colleague Nikos, who will in the very near future will be get his PhD on this subject, and when we started producing fruits for compounds, we said, well, we must do more on measuring these plants and studying the biochemical pathways. So what we do is we cooperate with other people in Wageningen, and one Wageningen is very good. It is so good to get all the different scientists from Wageningen together in a project. So we do work, for instance, now on coffee and on other compounds, and we try to start studying the biochemical metabolite pathway, because we think that by cultivation measurements, we can influence the pathways. But for other crops, we do not do that at all, because our partners from industry are so good in it that we just have to solve one thing, and that is the availability of the product for them, and to give the constant supply. So yes, we study the biochemical metabolite pathway to understand the response patterns in some crops, but in some crops we do not do that at all, and our partners do the thing. And they are so good in it, and they do it in such high speed, and they do it for a lot of compounds. So that the reality of the program is much more. We don't have to do it all in our own laboratory. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's yes and no. Yeah.
Great. So now I would like to close the Q&A room. Thank you everybody for questions. Wouter, thank you very much for this very interesting presentation.
Welcome.
And your patient answers. On 22nd of June, we are organizing another event as a part of Urban Greenhouse Challenge. That's the announcement of the finalists of the challenge, including a live talk show with the members of the selection committee. And they will discuss the concepts as well as trends and challenges in urban farming. So I think it's going to be a very interesting event. In the offer page, you can find the link to that event. Wouter has also prepared a handout, so you can find it also under files. I hope to see you at our next event. And now I would like to thank everybody and wish you a great afternoon or evening. Thank you very much. Bye bye.